Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for being here this afternoon, especially considering that today is Mother's Day in the United States, and for you to make a little space available for me to give this lecture is much appreciated. Today, I'm going to try to explain to you what Correo Mayor is or was in New Spain and in the Spanish America in general. Before I start, I want to give you a sense what Correo Mayor is. The most accurate translation in English would be Postmaster General. It's a title, it's a position in a mail system, but in this case it was a grant. It was a privately held concession that was awarded by the Crown, and the Correo Mayor title was very much sought after. And now that I have give you that translation, let's start by talking about the Correo Mayor de Nueva España, the Nueva España, New Spain. That was the name of the viceroyalty of what is now Mexico and beyond. And for the longest time, we thought, I mean, when I say we, when I'm talking about philately, we thought this was the earliest postal marking in the Americas. That's no longer the case. A few years ago, this example appeared in Peru, the viceroyalty in Peru. It's very similar to the one in Veracruz, which is the Mexican one. And it's dated about 10 months earlier, if I'm not mistaken. And the design is very similar, and it was received with much skepticism by the philately community, but it has gone through a lot of analysis and examinations. Even the ink has been dated and is now believed to be genuine, and so this is now without a doubt the oldest postmark of Spanish America. There's another one from New York dated 1707, but there's some argument still going as to whether that mark was applied in the States or in England. At any rate, we're not going to talk about the other ones. We're going to talk about this one, and in particular, the Correo Mayor in New Spain, which is different from the Correo Mayor de Indias, which is basically maritime mail. When the New World was discovered, the Crown awarded the Correo Mayor position, basically handed a blank check to an aristocrat as a reward in Spain without having any idea what they had in front of them as to the size of the lands they just discovered. So they gave that grant in perpetuity. It was inheritable, and the Carvajal family in Spain had the right to sell it to go from generation to generation using that without the Crown intervening. That was not the case in Mexico, and we're not going to talk about maritime mail in this occasion. We're going to concentrate in Correo Mayor de Nueva España. I like to use this already because Spain did not do anything that's similar, but it gives you an idea of how important mail handling was in the colonial era in general. I'm talking about European colonialism in the Americas. It was very important for the metropolis to have a tight control as to what was going on politically and economically in the colonies in the New World. And that's why it was very important to have tight controls in information, in communication. And the Spanish were very paranoid as to their colonies in Northern and Southern America, because they were afraid that the English or the French, even the Portuguese, could do something militarily that could threaten their hold and their colonies in the New World. That's why I like to use them already in this case to give you sort of like a sense of what it meant to have colonies that far away. I know I mean 2021, this is going to be an important year in Mexico, because it's going to be exactly in a few months 500 years to the day that Tenochtitlan, what is now Mexico City, fell to the conquistadors. And this is one of my favorite paintings in the world. And I think it basically represents very well what it meant and what 1521 means. It's a mistake to believe that with the fall of the Aztec Empire, the Spanish got hold of what is now Mexico. That's far from the truth. What is true is that it's basically the starting point of a very painful melting pot. This painting is called The Fusion of Two Cultures, and I think it brings about very clearly what it meant for the Spanish and the Native Americans to go against each other. Basically, it was the mixing of the fusion of those two cultures, and that mixing is what it's now Mexico, is what it's now Peru, is what it's now Colombia, Central America, Guatemala, you name it. The birth of what is now, I mean, I'm a Mexican, and I've done my DNA test, and it turns out I'm 9% Native American. I'm pretty sure that number may vary, but most of Mexicans you're going to meet are going to have some percentage of Native American blood, because that fusion was so well spread out that you can turn the dials one way or another, but you're going to get some of each at the end of the road, at the end of the analysis. That's why I like this painting so much. It has been reproduced in banknotes, in coins, in stamps. But today I like to show you the real thing. It's at Chapultepec Castle in Mexico. But to me, this is the actual birth of what was New Spain and what is now Mexico. 1521, 2021. It's 500 years this year. So with that, let me do a brief historical background before I get to touch to Correo Mayor. And as I told you, it's a mistake to believe that 1521 and the fall of the Aztec Empire was the end of it. By no means. It took the Spanish pretty much the rest of the 16th century to form what was the Viceroy of New Spain. And the main actors in this conquest were, of course, Hernán Cortés, who after Mexico City continued his conquest of what is now Oaxaca in southern Mexico. Pedro de Alvarado in Guatemala was the advance force that began the conquest of Central America. Francisco Montejo and his son had to deal with the Maya in the Yucatan. and it took them a long time. I mean, it was 1546 when they could say that the Yucatan was under control, but actually the Maya kept fighting until the early, very early 20th century. We're talking about 1901, when the last battle between federal forces and Native American insurrection, Maya insurrection, was fought in what is now the state of Quintana Roo, not that far away from Cancun. And lastly, I have to name this guy, even though by all standards he was a terrible guy, a miserable guy. He was cruel, he was sadistic, but he got to conquer the Mexican Pacific. Nuño Beltrán de Guzmán took all kinds of advantages, lies, betrayals, you name it. He ended up his days after he was tried, and ended up his days under house arrest in his castle in Spain. Not the end that he deserved, but anyway, I'm glad he's not commemorated anywhere in Flattery, not that I know of. After the phase of conquest, you still have the exploration phase, and you still have some explorers worth mention, like Álvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca. You're all familiar. He started in Florida, had trouble with his fleet, had to stay, lost their ships. They had to continue on foot, and after about 7 to 8 years, they basically managed to go south the Pacific in the Mexican West Coast, and they encounter another expedition fought by the Spanish, and that was the source of the legends of cities of gold and whatever. Another expedition worth mentioning is Miguel López de Legazpi and Andrés Urdaneta, who sailed off this point, Barra de Navidad, which is this sticky point here in the state of Jalisco, sailing westwards, and they ended up in what is now the Philippines. Legazpi remained there and founded Manila. He died there, but he was the one that started the Spanish colony in the Philippines, named after King Philip. And Andrés Urdaneta, he sailed back. So he was the first one that made a turnaround voyage in the Pacific, and returned 1 year later, following the currents. It took twice as long to come back as to go to the Philippines. And we end up the exploration with Juan de Fuca, a Greek that was working for the Spanish crown, who explored all the way up PIPEX area, all the Pacific Northwest, and you should be familiar with his name. So I won't try to tell you about Juan de Fuca. Anyway, examples of early mail once the Spanish were in what is now Mexico, in the 16th century are very scarce. This is one example. This is dated September 24, 1572, and it's a letter from the Fate Tribunal. Tribunal is more commonly known by the Spanish Inquisition. This was sent from Veracruz to Mexico City to the first inquisitor in Mexico City, which is the guy you have here. And his name was Pedro Moya de Contreras. And it basically deals with the books that had been received in Veracruz and other matters regarding to the establishment of the Inquisition in Mexico City. Pretty soon, it was apparent that the Correo Mayor, the postmaster in Spain, the postmaster, the Correo Mayor de Indias, were not in a position to handle the mail carrying problem in the new viceroyalty. So something had to be done. And fortunately for the viceroy in New Spain, he knew what had happened in Peru. In Peru, they faced the same problem a little earlier, and the viceroy in Peru was sort of like it's hard to describe, but it was sort of like a tough guy, and he established a Correo Mayor in Peru because he felt it was needed, and he did it without seeking approval from Spain or the Correo Mayor de Indias, which had the concession. So that led to a legal fight that would last for a long time. But I'm not going to deal with that because we would go much beyond the hour allowed to this lecture. So we're going to stay in Mexico, and these two guys are the ones responsible for the establishment of the Correo Mayor in New Spain. You have the fourth viceroy in New Spain, Martin Enriquez de Almanza, and he knew what had happened in Peru, so he asked formally King Philip II in Spain for permission to grant the title of Correo Mayor to somebody in the New World, and he got that permission. So in 1579, King Philip IV grants the office of Correo Mayor de Hostas y Postas y Correos de toda la Nueva España, which, to make it short, is the Correo Mayor of New Spain. And it was basically awarded in an auction type procedure, and it was awarded on August the 27th, 1580 to this guy, Martin de Olivares, and he was named the first Correo Mayor, the first Postmaster General in New Spain. If you go to Mexico City today, the picture you are looking at now is the backside of the National Palace, where the government, the office of the president is right now. That towers you see in the background over here is the cathedral in Mexico City. What you don't see in front of here is the Zócalo, the main square in Mexico City. But I point out this corner of the National Palace because it's the corner of the street that still bears the name of Correo Mayor with Calle de Moneda, with the mint. So you have the post and the mint. So that gives you an idea of the stature that both positions held in colonial government. For the first house where Correos was, where the central offices were, the only thing that remains is this plaque in the building outside. It is not there anymore. Actually, the postal palace in Mexico City that exists right now is the fifth house of posts that Mexico City has had, and it's a wonderful building. It's in front of the Fine Arts Palace, and it rivals the Fine Arts Palace in beauty. If you go to Mexico City, please cross the street and visit the postal palace. At any rate, this is where it was located when it was established in 1580. The office had its perks. I mean, the Correo Mayor not only got to handle all the mail in the viceroyalty, but he also had a seat in the city council of Mexico City, which I'm pretty sure had a lot of perks. especially in those years. And apart from the office in Mexico City, a few offices were open in Veracruz, in Puebla, in Oaxaca, in Querétaro, and Guanajuato. Basically, those were the first major settlements in early colonial times. The term Caxes in Old Spanish, X, is pronounced as an SH, like should or shit or whatever. That sound in Old Spanish has disappeared and has been substituted by a hard J. So right now it's Cajas, and that's why Mexico, instead of Mexico, which would have been a more accurate pronunciation of the city's name, is now Mexico. And that's how we pronounce it today. Unlike the Correo Mayor de Indias, the Correo Mayor de Nueva España was not inherited. Once the Correo Mayor died, the viceroyalty got hold of the title again and would auction again the title. The second Correo Mayor paid, just to give you an idea, 58,000 pesos in gold for the concession in the auction that was held. It was a hefty amount of money, so that would explain why in the almost 200 years, 187 years to be precise, there were only 10 Correos Mayores in total, and only 4 families held that title in 187 years. The Olivares, the Barrera, the Cobos, the Prieto. Retirement was not an option if you held the title of Correo Mayor, because it was very expensive to get it again. Okay, it would have been fine if the Correo Mayor did his job efficiently, but that was not the case. So you see along the years the intervention of the government, of the viceroyalty, to force the Correo Mayor to do stuff that should be done by itself. I mean, it was, except for this one, all the following decrees were meant to force the Correo Mayor to do something. As a result of outcry, because the cities, the towns, villages were not being serviced as they should. But in 1630, the viceroy demanded from the Correo Mayor that all official mail would be exempt from payment of any fees. And of course, it was granted. And gradually, as I told you, I'm going to give you some examples of decrees that were issued by the viceroyalty government to force the Correo Mayor to do something. Like in 1741, when the Carrera de Veracruz, the route to Veracruz, was forced to keep a schedule. Same thing happened in 1745. Oaxaca, to take how to get mail to Oaxaca. In 1757, an alternate route to Veracruz was established, just to make it run through Jalapa and the trade fair, which was very famous. And this is another example why governments should take control of the mail, especially back then, because in 1758 the Correo Mayor was asked to explore the possibility of opening a new route from San Luis Potosí, in basically central Mexico around here, to the northern towns of Saltillo and Monterrey. Monterrey is where I live, it's close to Texas. A year later, the Correo Mayor said that they couldn't because of the difficulties of the distance and the lack of water in the route. And the Viceroyalty say, I don't care about that. You are ordered to establish the route anyway. So the route was established anyway. A new decree in 1761 opens a new route between Zacatecas and Durango. And this should have flashed some red lights to the Correo Mayor in 1765 because the Viceroyalty asked for a detailed report, operational report of how things were handled. And this is, of course, because they were ready to take over, which happened the following year. In July 1st, 1766, the Correo Mayor is incorporated back to the crown and finishing the concession. This quickly, I'm going to show you this. This is the true size of Mexico compared to Europe. So that would give you an idea of the true size of the country and the problems of handling correspondence. Foreign mail. Here, I'm going to explain you very briefly how mail was carried. It departed Spain through or at the hand of the Correo Mayor de Indias. It would make its way with a stopover in Cuba to Veracruz. There, it would be handled by the lieutenant of the Correo Mayor de Indias to the Correo Mayor de Nueva España. And then it would be taken to Mexico City. And that was how it was, mail was handled coming from Spain. Mail wasn't coming from anywhere else. Even mail coming from South America had to go through Correo Mayor de Indias in Cuba. They would make the exchange. But anyway, once in Mexico, domestic mail was delivered. Either on horseback, on foot, or most commonly mule train. This is the size of the Viceroyalty back then. And now we get into correspondence. Once the Correo Mayor was established, the problem we had with the Correo Mayor is that there aren't any marks. The Correo Mayor did not put anything on the cover. And because it was a private enterprise, there's very little information left today, so we can understand clearly how it operated. But here we have a letter from the king himself. Here you can read, por el rey, by the king, is signed by the king, I, the king. This is the signature of Philip IV, and it was addressed in 1635 to the blessed and devout Father Provincial of the Order of Santo Domingo in Mexico City. And in the text, you can read how the king asked the Provincial Father to keep an eye on the Indians and make sure that they were not mishandled by the conquistadors. Still, official mail, 1630. This was close to the date where an exemption from payment was demanded. And here we have the 15th Viceroy sending a letter to Veracruz. You can tell by Virrey. Virrey is the Spanish word for Viceroy. And here you have the seal of the office, but no marks. That's it. And of course, you have private mail like this one. From Irapuato to Salamanca, it's a very short distance, but it's placed along the Camino Real de Tierra Adentro, one of the royal roads. So there's no doubt that this must have been handled by the Correo Mayor. But as you can see, there are absolutely no marks that can tell us how much he paid, or the date or anything related to the operation of Correo Mayor. I'm going to jump forward to 1821. This is when Mexico achieved independence. What you're looking at is a picture of the post offices that were in operation at the time of independence. You can see the tags in different colors, the pins, which are colored by intendencias, by provinces, and the white outline stars are offices that we know existed, but no known colonial pieces are known. One example is, for instance, this one, Laredo in Texas. We know there was a post office in Laredo, but during colonial times, no pieces are known. Of course, there were also in California and here in Guatemala, but not to clog the map, I didn't include them in this picture. If we make it, we look at it closer to the central part of Mexico, where most of the offices were located. You can see the red triangles. Those are where the Correo Mayor marks that we know today are from. It looks like only a few offices had it, but let's step back. This is what happens when the crown took over in what is it, less than 50 years. But if we go back to the time when the crown took over, this is how the post offices looked in 1767. These are all the offices. So the routes were not as complicated as later. We didn't need that many postal districts. And here we have the question of the postmarks. We have to know the source. Are they original? Why they were created? And the most puzzling fact, how come every piece that we know today is Jesuit mail? Why? It cannot be by coincidence. I mean, it's a very puzzling question because how come there are no pieces of mail known with marks other than Jesuit mail? It's not like only Jesuit could write letters back then. So it's something that needs to be investigated and explored. And at this point, I'm in opposition to answer that question. I'm far from it. But it is a fact that during the time of the Correo Mayor, every piece of mail known is Jesuit mail. However, there is indirect evidence that the Postmaster General, and we're talking about the Postmaster General once the office was incorporated to the government of the Viceroyalty, argued the revenue directors in Mexico City in 1772 because they were arguing because they wanted to have two stamps, one from stating the place of origins of the piece of mail, and the second one the rate, how much the letter was going to be charged in the receiving end. And in the report, there is a paragraph that reads, and I'm going to read that part. Thus, receiving them stamped from everywhere and from Mexico City without any stamp, as in the times of the Correo Mayor. So here indirectly, the Postmaster General in 1772 says that there were marks from everywhere else, from everywhere except from Mexico City at the time of the Correo Mayor. This is the only bit of information that gives credit to these marks that I'm about to show you. So these are the offices And those that have pins are pieces that have not appeared so far in the philatelic market. And we're going to go really quickly through them because I don't want to go long on the marks. And of course, I'm going to do it alphabetically, but I'm going to start with the earliest, just to give you the background. This is the earliest piece known, is docketed, it's not dated, but it's docketed July 12, 1736, and it's to Mexico City, is Jesuit, of course. The present owner is in Germany, is Dr. Jareski, maybe a name that is familiar to many of you. He owns this very important letter, which is the earliest postmark known from New Spain and the second from Spanish America. Our good friend Omar Rodriguez from New York owns this piece. It's dated 1739. It's also Jesuit. And this is my piece. And I put it here just because it's mine and because it's the better looking of all the marks. Anyway, this is dated 1756, but there are only 4 documented pieces known and 1 is undated. Okay, let's go alphabetically. This is the mark from Aguascalientes. There are only 2 pieces known, and this is the one I showed in PIPEX this year. It's dated in 1760. It's to Mexico City. Celaya, it's in central Mexico, not that far away from San Miguel de Allende. Maybe some of you have heard of the place. This is still, all Correo Mayor pieces are very difficult, but this is one of the less difficult to get because there are at least 8 documented pieces that show this mark. All belong to the same archive, or original archive. And this one in particular is dated in 1761. The latest dated one is in 1765. This we are puzzled as to where to list, either in the Correo Mayor or after the Correo Mayor was dissolved, because it was in the middle. They changed the design, changed the set, the C to a C, like in chocolate, I mean C. Is dated August the 1st, 1767. The Jesuits were just about to be expelled sorry, they were already expelled, I think. At any rate, this is the only piece known with this particular mark. And how we know that that is not Correo Mayor, because it shows a tube. Once the Crown took over, it was part of the new regulations to put the fee outside the letter. So we know that this paid 2 reals for delivery, paid at delivery. So this was not a Correo Mayor piece. In Durango, 1766, just made it. This is the only documented piece from Durango. They were just about to get taken over. Guadalajara, and I'm going to show you the difference between Correo Mayor and Royal Inland Revenue. This is the mark. It's not very clear, but here you can see it. December 9, 1765. And here is a more clear example. This is still Jesuit, but it has a tube. This shows us that it's no longer a Correo Mayor piece. It also paid 2 reals. Oaxaca, there are actually 3 documented pieces, but the third is not complete. It's on the reverse side of the letter, and I have that one. It's missing the not completely the bottom half, but it's not complete. But This is one of the two documented pieces. The other one is also in Dr. Jareski's collection. It's very early. Also, it's dated 1756. This is the only one known from Pátzcuaro, which is close to Morelia. Back then, it was called Valladolid. Lovely, lovely cancel. Some say it's in the form of pomegranate. And this is Querétaro. This is the only piece that we know that is not addressed to Mexico City. This is addressed from one college to another college, both Jesuits in Oaxaca. But it's the only one we know that is not addressed to Mexico City. It's also very early, 1751. There are only three documented pieces. Two bear this mark, and this is one that bears this mark that for a long time it was thought to be a different mark. But once we look at it closer, we can see that it's actually a double strike of the same cancel repeated twice. We see the overlap of the margin on top, another overlap in the lateral right side. Then we have the RO repeated, letter A repeated, it's shown in yellow. And finally, another overlap of the frame. So we can conclude that it's actually the same postal mark. It was only struck twice. So it looks like a wider version, but it's actually the same. So that makes three pieces now. Then Puebla. Another one, this is not Correo Mayor any longer, but it is a Correo Mayor piece. Here we have the two. This is dated 1767. Only two documented pieces. San Luis Potosí, this has the ornate frame. Only two pieces are known. And this is the only one that this is the version without that ornate frame. Also 1765. We go to Valladolid, to this lovely heart-shaped cancel. And there are two versions of this. This is the key element that you can watch. This is a small a. There are three documented pieces with that small a that eventually was changed to a capital A. And with this mark, there are at least four pieces documented, including one of the early certifications fronts from the Americas. This is dated in 1770. It was postpaid, and you can tell because you have the signature Moche, which is the signature of the administrator. We know his name was Antonio Moche, and this is his signature. So he with his signature, he sort of gave faith that the fee was paid at the origin of the piece. And lastly, we have this one from Zacatecas, lovely one. And there are four documented pieces known. This is dated 1760. And that was a quick run through of the known marks of the Correo Mayor. This is basically a record of the known documented pieces. And the last total here is more like an estimate. We estimate that it would be between 48 and 60 pieces in existence today in private hands. So that would explain why it is so hard to find them, and why it's so hard to make a collection of Correo Mayor cancels, and why I feel so lucky to be able to show you this in my collection in PIPEX this year. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and muchas gracias.
Thank you. That was a marvelous presentation. This time, we ask that you unmute yourself if you have questions or comments. And you can also use the chat box to generate questions.
Well, I'm just going to say that was just an outstanding presentation, not just about the focus of your exhibit, but just for me, learning about the history of Mexico. It was great. Thank you.
After seeing this lecture, go back and see the exhibit so you can understand it a little better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so difficult to put all this information in just 16 pages.
Jaime, I have a question.
Yes.
How much during this Correo Mayor period, how much other mail is there existing?
There should have been plenty. There should have been plenty. But the problem is that the Correo Mayor did not put any marks on mail. Mm-hmm. So nobody kept it. And I mean, because it's everyday correspondence is not the sort of stuff that you're going to find in the National Archive or in local archives, because it's everyday stuff. So the amazing part to me is why these marks appear only in Jesuit mail. My best guess, and it's only a guess and a hypothesis, is that it's probably an accounting mark. This is my hypothesis. It's probably an accounting mark by way of settling accounts in Mexico City, where the Jesuits would let every convent in the Viceroyalty keep correspondence with the central office in Mexico City, and they would pay for everything. So that would explain why only Jesuit mail has these marks. But I could be wrong. I mean, this is only a hypothesis.
How plentiful is other than Jesuit mail in the period?
How what? Sorry.
How plentiful is mail other than the Jesuit mail?
Is what you see. I mean, the piece I show with the certification marks, that is not Jesuit. The Jesuit were expelled from Mexico in 1667. But it's still clerical. I mean, it's one friar sending a letter to another friar. No, it's not Jesuit any longer, because Jesuits were long gone. But the post office in Valladolid kept using the mark.
Yeah. Well, I collect the revenue stamp paper, and of course that begins about 1650 and fairly readily available. I've never tried to collect the early mail, but would it be as available?
It's more available because you get revenue paper on official documents. So you would find it in archives.
Yeah.
But these sort of marks, I mean, they are so hard. I mean, we are talking right now about a universe of 60 pieces, and from
clearly the markings are rare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And from that you have to make assumptions about so many things.
But no one saved just the regular official mail.
No. Like I show you the piece from the king and the viceroy. I have several other pieces, but not Correo Mayors. No marks at all.
Yeah.
So you have to dig really deep into the National Archives or another official archives to look for nothing. I mean, I tried. There is a very large archive of Franciscan documents in Cholula, near Puebla, and I tried to talk to the padre, that is in charge of the library to see if he could let me have a peek of what they have. And it was very nice. He was very pleasant and very brief. It took him less than 2 minutes to say, forget about it. No, nobody is going in. So it's very difficult to get into church records. I need to become a Franciscan, I think. And I'm too old for that.
Well, it was a fascinating exhibit, and I appreciate the background that you've given us today. So now I know what to look for. If I find anything, I'll let you know.
Oh, okay. Any more questions? Okay, but have a nice rest of Mother's Day. And I was very happy to be able to participate in PIPEX and to have the opportunity to give this lecture to you and to get it recorded.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So PIPEX and I would like to thank you for participating in this excellent presentation. Special thank you to Jamie Benavides. There's one more PIPEX seminar that we hope you'll make. It's coming up in about 30 minutes. And again, thank you. Hopefully everyone has been having a great time.
I have, yeah. Yeah, it's been great.